Hello, everyone. It is with immense pleasure I welcome you all to today's Policy Manthan in discussion. Before beginning with this session, I would request everyone to please switch on our cameras to make this session more engaging and interactive. I hope you guys all are clear with the moral code of conduct for the Policy Manthan discussion. The session will be democratic one where everyone will be given a chance to speak, and you have to indicate your willingness to speak by clicking on the raise hand icon. And all speaker must adhere to the moral code of conduct for the Policy Manthan. Nobody will speak over an active speaker, and the videos must be kept on at all the times since the session is being live at the YouTube. And be mindful and do not exceed the speaking time assigned to you. The maximum time limit is 3 minutes and the minimum time limit is 2 minutes. So speakers should be respectful while questioning and cross-questioning each other's view. No derogatory and hateful speech will be entertained at any cost. I hope the instructions are clear. So once again, welcome to this week's Policy Manthan session. As you guys all know that the mental health is a crucial component of an individual's overall health and well-being. Given that we have observed the World Mental Health Day on October 10th this week. So it is important that we discuss how it pans out in educational institute as a key objective of the NEP 2020. So the various sub-themes under it are mental health apparatus in government schools, challenges and possibilities, how to create safe spaces in classrooms, employing peer-to-peer communication, strategies to encourage sensitive rapport among students, mental health care for teachers, how can educators cope with the deficit, destigmatizing the language of mental health disorders at school, what should be mental health budget for the education sector look like, and exploring the intersectional components of mental health, addressing structural discrimination, inequality, and stigma that students face, the effect of corporal punishment and vindictive temper of tutors on students' mental health, the role of family and peer groups in stimulating youth mental health, school mental health plans, a roadmap to a national goal. So these are the sub-themes. Since all the house rules about the speaker conduct and permissible speech must be already known, we expect you all to share your views, solution, and even critical insights on the given themes. So let me decide the order of the discussion. Please raise your hands so that I can decide. Yeah, all right. So first we have Anmol, second we have Radhika, and third we have Ishita. So yeah, first I would like to Anmol. Please, Anmol, yes, you can come and go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. So my topic is effects of corporal punishment on students' mental health. So basically, corporal punishment refers to intentional application of physical pain as method of negative reinforcement to exact behavior change. It includes slapping, spanking, shaking, painful body postures, excessive drills, or prevention of urine or stool elimination. Advocates of corporal punishment contend that it is an effective form of behavior correction, while vast majority of evidence-based studies indicate that it is ineffective and rather has major effects on physical and mental health of students. So basically, some students who are subjected to severe punishment develop an illness called educationally induced post-traumatic stress disorder. They suffer from sleeping difficulties, fatigue, feelings of sadness, worthlessness, suicidal ideation, anxiety and episodes, increased angers with feelings of resentment and outburst of aggression. They also experience deteriorating peer relationships. They have concentration difficulties and lower school achievements, antisocial behavior, intense dislike towards authority, and tendency to avoid school, and consequently high school dropout rates. Some researchers concluded that punished children become more rebellious and develop vindictive behavior, seeking retribution against school officials. It also has counterproductive results where a student may cease acting out in one class only to continue it in others. They learn a wrong message, one of avoidance or escape from getting caught. Corporal punishment constructs an environment of education that is unproductive and punitive. There is limited sense of confidence and security, and even those students who just witness it they can develop low self-esteem issues. They are fearful, and because of that fear, the nurturing of open communication that is so vital for an effective education is severely ruined. Children who are who are impressionable, they resort to violence in future because they see their teachers using it. They assume that it is acceptable to use violence, especially against the weak, the defenseless, and the subordinate, because it is approved by the teachers themselves. The long-term use of corporal punishment tends to increase the probability of deviant and antisocial behaviors. It negatively affects a student's psyche through mental harassment, shame, guilt, feeling of inferiority, and self doubt. So instead of corporal punishment, there have been suggestions. For example, teachers can require students to write a statement describing negative effects of their behavior, to apologize for the mistakes in front of their classmates. Instructors can require the misbehaving students to basically go on a timeout, maybe sit on a chair at the back of the room or on a mat, and think about their mistakes and how they can improve on it. Schools can promote an environment that clearly demonstrates students are valued, respected, and understood. And schools can have peer supportive programs that utilize techniques to encourage acceptable behavior. Lastly, I would like to mention that National Commission for Protection of Child Rights in 2008 issued a set of guidelines on corporal punishment, which includes that all children are to be informed through campaign or publicity drives that they have a right to speak against corporal punishment and bring it in notice of the authorities, and they must be given that confidence to make such complaints and not accept punishment as a normal activity of school. Even schools must have forum where children can express their views, and a complaint box can be installed where children can drop complaints, even anonymous. That would require monthly PTA meetings to review and take actions. Parents as well as children are to be empowered to speak out against corporal punishment without any fear that it would have adverse effect on children's participation in school. While these guidelines are excellent, their implementation and execution is a different story altogether. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anmol. Thank you for sharing the insightful perspective. I completely agree with your point, especially the point that you highlighted about the post-traumatic disorder. So I completely agree that the use of corporal punishment can damage the relationship between a child and their caregiver. Children who are basically subjected to this physical punishment may feel fear or resentment towards their caregiver, and which can impact their trust and attachment to them. Like in spite, like overall, the use of corporal punishment is not an effective or an appropriate means of discipline, we can say. Like the alternative disciplinary practice that you suggest is like such as positive reinforcement or setting clear boundaries and expectations. So we should take that into consideration. And overall, it is an important for caregiver to prioritize their mental and physical well-being of their children and seek support and resources when needed. So next, I would like to invite our another speaker, Radhika.
Good evening, everyone. I would be talking about creating safe spaces in classrooms. To create a learning environment where all students feel safe, we'll have to keep two things in mind. First of all, one size doesn't fit all, because you'll have to cater to different learning styles, be flexible, adapt on the go. And context also plays a huge role here. The socioeconomic background students are from, the language and cultural barriers, if any, so they'll all have to be kept in mind. And secondly, trust building. For example, a student will always approach a teacher with a place of fear, and they'll always have some sense of shame or a barrier, like, will they be ridiculed by their peers if they talk about this? So they have a lot of emotions to navigate, and that can be hard if there is no judgment-free zone. That's why the onus to create that is on the teachers, because before teachers can help solve the problems that students are facing, they'll have to tackle the problems that are stopping them from expressing their needs. And this gap will have to be bridged for them to make any progress. And this can be tackled separately for smaller children and differently for adolescents. For instance, with smaller children, setting up safe spaces by including them in the planning, by letting them choose their corners, letting them decide how they want to decorate their calming zone, so that they feel a sense of ownership and they feel like they can they want to take care of that space, and also educating them on when to go in the calming space, teaching them that when they're happy or they're drawing or learning, it's supposed to be in the classroom, and when they're feeling quote unquote big feelings, they can go to their calming space and then come back when they feel ready. This is called social emotional learning, and for that teachers will have to be trained to pick up on verbal cues and non-verbal cues as well. Similarly, with adolescents, they have a wide range of problems like physiological, hormonal, learning disorders, career dilemmas, and teachers will need to be their friends mostly. For instance, but in a classroom level, of course, there is sex education, menstrual health, mental health, tools to deal with their emotions, exercises that they can incorporate that can be taught. But they'll also need more than that, because adolescents also go through an increasing sense of self and identity development, and for that they'll have to be adequately challenged and stimulated as well. Also, another cultural challenge that we have, which is quite common in India, is that when students are in high school or in 10th standard, they hear things like, don't spend too much time with friends, focus on your exams. And while that is all intended well, but teachers should actually support students to have healthy, supportive relationships and have a good peer group so that they can also bounce off of each other's ideas and coping strategies. And while these things can happen, teachers have to be trained to be attentive in class and also acknowledge the social, cultural backgrounds that students come from become very important. Similarly, having an actual counselor to intervene when necessary and taking smaller steps like making all topics open and free to talk about or question in a classroom, basically a classroom where no topic is a taboo. And career counselors can be included. Although some schools in urban India have career counselors, it just becomes imperative to incorporate them in all schools so future prospects and career dilemmas can be professionally handled. I'd like to say that when we think of our favorite classes or favorite teachers, we look back fondly on teachers who actually created a safe space for us before we even realized what a safe space was. And that brought joy. And they brought joy to us in studies as well, made classes fun, engaged with us through jokes or stories, but also challenged us enough to learn. And I think if I feel like that's the goal. If we can create an environment where every period is a safe space, then classrooms can be fun and a learning opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Radhika, for sharing your views. I could not agree more with your point. Indeed, safe space in the classroom are designated areas where students can feel physically and emotionally safe, respected, and valued. And the role of safe spaces in the classroom is to promote positive mental health and well-being for all for the students. And especially the fact that you mentioned that, like, for different ages, like if we talk about childhood and if we talk about adolescents, we should definitely take a different approach towards them, since like adolescents, at the age of adolescence, they usually faces identity crisis or existential crisis we talk about. So for them we should apply a different approach towards them. So overall, safe spaces in the classroom are an important tool for promoting positive mental health and fostering inclusion and diversity and creating a supportive learning environment for all students. And teachers and school administrators should prioritize the creation and maintenance of safe spaces in the classroom and school. So thank you for raising this point, Radhika. Next, I would like to invite Isha. Isha, you can go ahead.
Hi everyone. So as Radhika rightly highlighted the importance of a safe space in the classroom, so I'll be covering the topic of peer-to-peer communication strategies for encouraging sensitive rapport among students that can lead to the creation of a safe space. So first of all, I'd like to discuss why at all we need peer-to-peer communication in the context of mental health. So very often the classroom becomes a reason for the stemming of mental health issues among teenagers, especially issues like bullying, body shaming, and social isolation are some of the unwanted elements that call for a need to sensitize peers towards each other. So from being a space that triggers insecurities for teenagers, the classroom can be completely transformed into a safe space open to mental health conversations, given that the right communication strategies are put in place that encourage such a sensitive rapport. And now I'll discuss some useful and realistic strategies that can be employed to implement this and improve the mental health of students by creation of a a safe space and good communication practices. The first one is mental health awareness workshops. I believe that there is a great need to create a sense of empathy among peers, and for that, a basic understanding of mental health problems is a must. But it is important to consider that this might just become another mandatory lecture for teenagers, and they might not really take it so seriously. So, I suggest that to make it more realistic and to make it more interesting, pop culture references, for example, Netflix shows such as Atypical or One Day at a Time. These are some of the shows that address mental health issues, and at the same time, they're also age appropriate for teenagers. So, short clips from such shows or even other pop cultural references can be elaborated on to educate peers in a very interesting way that resonates with them. Another creative strategy that I could come up with was creation of peer support groups. So, peer support groups can help a great deal if empathy and confidentiality are encouraged. And for that, schools will need to have a trained counselor who facilitates such conversations that are focused on common experiences of students, for example, on topics of anxiety, depression, or academic stress, and any other issues that children commonly face at this time of adolescence. Another strategy that schools can implement is the creation of anonymous channels. Anonymous channels can help a great deal when it comes to communication strategies among peers. For example, if there are confidential reporting systems for children, then they can report about a friend's mental health without breaching their trust and without revealing their own identity. One of the most important strategies that I'd like to state lastly is mental health first aid training. So usually first aid training is provided for physical illnesses, and I think if we implement the same in the context of mental health, that would be really useful. So for this, students should be taught how to recognize symptoms and signs of mental health issues, such as changes in behavior, mood, or social withdrawal. And this training should specially emphasize on how students can communicate with each other without being judgmental, how they can actively listen to each other, how they can maintain confidentiality and be empathetic at the same time. Also, it is important to tell students and make sure that they understand that mental health first aid is not a replacement for professional help. And so they should be trained to connect their peers when they feel that they are in the need for it. They should be able to connect them with school counselors, mental health professionals, or crisis helplines whenever necessary. And to make sure that the first aid training is effective, role playing exercises can play a great role. Students can practice how to approach a peer, start a conversation about mental health, and offer the support effectively. So, in all, the 4 strategies that I suggest are mental health awareness workshops, peer support groups, creating anonymous channels, and mental health first aid training. So, I hope you found these strategies useful. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isha, for the insightful perspective. We are so glad that you shared the strategies with us. These are quite helpful. And the fact that you mentioned that we should, instead of sympathizing, we should empathize with them. I completely agree with that. Sympathize is like when you feel pity or compassionate towards someone. But when you have empathy towards someone, then like you think from their perspective, you put yourself in another shoe. So yeah, definitely we should keep that in mind. And about role play, as you said, indeed, using role play exercises can help students practice positive communication skill and learn how to handle difficult situation. So overall, by employing the peer-to-peer communication strategies that you mentioned in a supportive environment, teachers can help students develop important social and emotional skills that will benefit them and both inside and outside of the classroom. So yeah, peer-to-peer communication are indeed play a crucial role in promoting positive mental health outcomes. So yeah, moving on to our next speaker, I would like to invite Ayush. Ayush, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. So my topic is role of parents and peer groups in youth mental health. So youth of today has been raised with tremendous opportunities at hand, with many options to excel at. Unlike the millennials who had limited resources or resources which were not developed when they were starting their careers. But it is also seen often that with an increase in every resource or opportunity, there also comes competition. To bear the effects of this competition, everyone needs a support system, which mostly comprises of one's parents and close circles. But one tends to feel isolated when he or she wants to share their feelings or problems with their parents because they do not get reciprocated in the manner they wish to due to gap in understanding. This leads to hesitance of sharing anything with parents, which further leads to alienation and isolation of information parents know about their children. No matter how many times a parent says that we are open with our children and they share everything with us, irrespective of the topic, it is many times not the case. There are various reasons due to which this takes place. One of them is generation gap. Both the generations belong to different times and thus follow different belief systems. For parents, subjects like mental health are a taboo, and many times it is seen that they do not differentiate between clinical conditions like depression or anxiety with being mentally challenged. Many still feel that it is all in your head and anyone can come out of it by just being strong and by not thinking about it much. Wish it was that easy to come out of something like depression or anxiety. Though it is still viewed as a taboo topic in India by many, it is very real and concerning. According to a report by World Health Organization, 1 in 4 people in India will suffer with some form of mental health condition in their lifetime. What is more concerning is that 80% of the population suffering from mental health concerns does not want to seek professional treatment due to the stigma attached to it, as well as the role of feeding the information since their childhood. That is not something to talk about or share, or it is not like any other medical condition which needs professional treatment. Lack of information plays a major role in this case, which was evident in a study conducted by the Indian Psychiatric Society, which found that only 12% of respondents had ever heard of depression, which is one of the most common mental illnesses in India. Coming to this generation, which is often termed as the Gen Z, cases of anxiety issues or depression has been on a high at unprecedented rates. People in their teens and early 20s are going through existential crisis as they feel that they did not live up to their potential, which is concerning. One of the reasons of this happening, I feel, is overexposure to the lives of successful teens due to social media. Social media has opened up portals for comparison, which was once local to now global. With increased sample size, chances of finding someone more successful than you have also increased, thus worsening the mental health scenario of the country. Before this generation, there were less cases of detected depression or anxiety due to two reasons. Number one, they had less knowledge of what the mental health condition meant, and even if they did, they rarely got treated by a psychiatrist, which reduced the cases of detected patients. Number two, there was less sample size to draw comparison from. Comparisons derived were more local, as they had a smaller number of people to look up to. Peer groups of friends in general who should be the closest to listen to their friends' problems or issues, also rejects the possibility of mental health issues and underplays it by saying that it's just a phase and one will get through it by themselves. The scare of getting trolled from friends leads to avoidance of sharing one's mind with them, which further complicates the issue. Also, peer groups which are meant for support have also become one of the major competitors for teens, which is really not good from the point of view of their mental health. Now it is clear that the scenario of support systems in the form of parents and peer groups is not fit for youth of today, who goes through mental health issues from excessive work pressure to meet the targets set by their parents or by themselves too, by comparing their lives to someone who has made it in their 20s. One of the prevailing issues which is on a rise is due to this work pressure, which is early burnout. Debbie Sorensen, a Denver based psychologist, states that younger millennials and Gen Z were raised with a lot of pressure to be high achievers, but are starting their careers in a chaotic landscape where they have little autonomy and freedom to find a meaningful, well paid job. Quick burnout or early burnout in youth is a major concern, as this can lead to an economic slowdown and weakening of the working population of the country. So, what can be done to make it better for the youth? Instead of putting pressure on their children to succeed at a younger age, there is a need to give reassurance or validation by the parents to their children, as it is what they need the most at times of feeling low and unworthy. Peer groups and friends should regularly check on their friends if they are feeling good or not, and should have open conversations to mental health concerns or about life in general. This would help in the creation of support groups of close circles, which would immensely benefit someone with mental conditions like anxiety or depression. Parents should be open to learning more about mental health condition and accept it to be as crucial as any other medical condition. This would lead to an inclusive environment at home, which would be a safe haven for someone to vent out what they really feel inside. Youth or children facing mental health issues should try to collate and express their issues openly to anyone they feel safe to open up to. It is difficult to arrange your thoughts, but it slowly gets easier when it comes out of your system. The points or solutions I have mentioned are not in any way statistics based in nature, as I feel that human nature or expression in every way is unique, and thus issues regarding it cannot be solved by solutions based out of fixed criteria or stats. Though it is difficult to make youth mental health a topic which is understood by everyone at the same pulse as we who go through understand, we can get close to it by expressing what we experience or what we feel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ayush, for sharing your perspective. I'm glad the difference that you mentioned about millennium and Gen Z's generation. Indeed, in the increasing age of social media, AI, and technology, the mental health cases are at increased level. So, and for that, if we talk about parents, they indeed play a crucial role in mental health, in imparting mental health education for their children, because they are the primary caregivers and influences in their children's life, and parents can create a safe and open environment for their children to talk about their feelings, their emotions, and they can educate themselves and their children about mental health and mental illness. And they can inculcate model healthy behavior among their children. They can provide emotional support and encouragement, and truly they can become the advocates for their children mental health needs. So by doing so, parents can help their children develop positive mental health habits and access appropriate resources and treatment when needed. So thank you so much, Ayush, for highlighting this point. So next, I would like to invite Ketki. You can go ahead. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'll be talking about the importance of destigmatizing the language of mental health disorders in school, and I would also be emphasizing on how this can be achieved with reference to the mental health legislations in our country. Mental health is a subject that impacts all of us, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. And it's not confined to the boundaries of age, gender, or socioeconomic status. Yet, when it comes to discussing mental health in our schools, there has been a veil of silence historically that needs to be lifted. So, for this, first we must recognize and acknowledge the gravity of the situation. Mental health disorders are not something that must be whispered about or treated with a taboo. Because according to the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, approximately 1 in every 5 individuals of our country suffer from a mental health disorder. And out of this, 20% are people below the age of 20. So, in recent years, our country has taken significant strides in addressing mental health issues, specifically with the passing of the Mental Health Care Act of 2017. And the but however, the effectiveness of this legislation ultimately depends on how well it is implemented and integrated into our society, for which its integration into the educational system is vital. The first step in destigmatizing the language of mental health disorders in school is formal and informal education. So, schools are not just places of academic learning, but they're also institutions that shape people as future citizens. It's crucial that students, teachers, and staff are well informed about mental health. And for this, educators should receive special training on recognizing signs of mental distress in students and providing appropriate support where necessary. Moreover, students should be educated about mental health from a young age, and they should recognize that having mental health trouble is as normal as getting a flu. We must teach children that it is okay for them to ask for help when needed, and this is not a sign of weakness as society leads them to believe. This can be very effectively implemented in our curriculum through social emotional learning packages, just for an example, and possibly as a part of life skills education programs also. Another crucial aspect is communication. We need to encourage open and honest discussions about mental health within the school environment. Um, as someone who has been through the mill, I can testify that mental health conversations were something that were severely looked upon in my school days. If you were to confide in your teachers about facing such issues, you were simply asked to be stronger and just go through it and it would pass. But this is not the case. It also depends very much on the language that we use. Instead of using derogatory terms or stereotypes, which I'm sure all of us have heard in our school days, we should use words that promote empathy and understanding. Words matter as they can either perpetuate stigma or break it down. Additionally, creating support systems within schools is vital. Mental health professionals, counselors, and support groups can play a pivotal role in offering help to students in distress. By having a space that students can confide in, where they can express their feelings and concerns, we can foster an environment of care and trust. But it's not just students who need support here, educators also face massive amounts of stress. We must also ensure that teachers get access to mental health resources, since their stress can also sometimes get displaced and can cause detrimental effects to kids. And so we should create environments where they are also encouraged to seek help and speak out about their issues. While we have made progress in legislation, it is also equally important to monitor its implementation. So students should hold the system accountable for ensuring the Mental Health Care Act is adhered to. This not only means that the schools will be liable to provide adequate support within the school environment, the school precinct, but also raising awareness about the rights and protections offered under this act. In conclusion, mental health is a topic that touches all of our lives. It is not something that should be relegated to hushed conversations outside of the societal boundaries, but something that needs to be integrated into our day-to-day conversations. So I think it needs collective action to make sure that mental health is not stigmatized, but rather celebrated as an essential component of our overall well-being. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ketki, for sharing your views. I completely agree with your point. Even Ayush also mentioned in his speech that mental health is a topic of is often taboo or stigmatized. So indeed, for that, schools can play a critical role in mental health education by destigmatizing the language of mental health disorder. And I'm really glad that the fact that you mentioned that words, about the role of words do matter. I completely agree with that. And especially the role of legislation and monitoring and implementation that you said. Indeed, what that seems to be in paper should be also applied in practice too. No, it depends not only the legislation only, it depends on the proper implementation of the policy. And for that, we are we are equal stakeholders for that. And as you mentioned that collective support is required, I could not deny this fact. So yeah, schools can incorporate mental health education into their curriculum, such as the health classes or assemblies that you mentioned, that this can help in normal discussions around stigma and surrounding mental illness, and by promoting open communication and honest conversations about mental health, illness, and schools can basically help students to develop positive coping mechanism and access the support they need to maintain a good mental health. So indeed, these are various important and crucial aspects that should be taken into consideration. Thank you so much, Ketki, for highlighting these facts. Next, I would like to invite Nana. You can go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I will be speaking on the topic of mental health care for teachers. How can educators cope with the deficit? So, this topic is sort of personal to me because during the COVID times, I had a close relative who was a teacher, and I saw her go through a burnout during that time because she was under so much stress due to her excess of schoolwork. So, that is why I've chosen this topic. So, in the field of education, the well being and mental health of teachers play an integral role in shaping the quality of learning environments and the academic and emotional development of students. And while the focus has been on students' well-being and academic performance, the mental health of teachers is an equally vital aspect that demands attention and prioritization. So we'll delve into the importance of teachers' mental health, discussing the various factors that contribute to their stress, and offering insights into how supporting their well-being can lead to better educational outcomes. So, significance of teachers' mental health. The mental health of teachers is a topic that is frequently, I would say, underestimated or overlooked in discussions surrounding education. However, the profound impact of teachers' mental health on the classroom atmosphere, students' emotional and academic well-being, and the overall effectiveness of teaching cannot be ignored. Teachers are not just educators, they are role models, they are mentors and caregivers who significantly influence their students' lives. Thus, the mental health of teachers directly affects the mental health and learning experience of students. There are various factors which contribute to a teacher's mental stress, and before delving into those points, it is imperative to understand that there are it is imperative to understand that the factors that contribute to their stress and challenges. So, number one would be workload, of course. Teachers are often tasked with a multitude of responsibilities, including lesson planning, grading, assignments, and administrative duties. This demanding workload, exacerbated by the pressure to meet curriculum requirements, can lead to stress or burnout. Student behavior challenges. Teachers encounter a diverse array of students in their classroom. Addressing disruptive behavior, defiance, or emotional outbursts can be emotionally taxing, especially when maintaining a positive and a conducive learning atmosphere is a priority. There is also a pressure to perform. In the pursuit of excellence and the pressure to deliver exceptional results, it can create heightened anxiety and stress. The weight of responsibility and the expectations placed on teachers can be overwhelming. There's also a lack of resources. In many educational settings, teachers grapple with limited resources, including insufficient classroom materials, outdated technology, and a shortage of support staff. And like sometimes there are shortage of teachers in school, and one teacher has to cover many different classes, many different subjects, and that can lead to stress for that individual teachers. And that is the example that I saw in my relative. And now the impact of teachers' mental health on students. Teachers' mental health significantly influences students' emotional state, learning environment, and academic progress. Direct impact on students' emotional state and learning environment. Teachers are role models and significant figures in students' lives. And a happy teacher exudes a happy personality, positivity, which directly impacts the learning environment. Conversely, a stressed teacher can have a negative effect on the classroom atmosphere and lead to poor student outcomes. It is well documented that a significant portion of mental illnesses in children begin before the age of 14, and teachers can play a crucial role in early intervention by identifying risk factors and symptoms. However, that is only possible when the teacher themselves are relieved of their own stresses and mental pressures. Negative effect on teaching effectiveness. Teachers are responsible for delivering lessons in a way that students can easily understand and process. A mentally relaxed and content teacher can bring positive energy to their classrooms, resulting in increased effectiveness and enhanced learning experiences for students. Supporting teacher mental health. Now, I will be talking about how can the school educational institutions can support their teachers. And in the quest to address the deficit in mental health care for teachers, it is imperative to recognize that the mental health of educators is an indispensable component of education system. Teachers are not just transmitters of knowledge, they are the emotional and academic anchors in the lives of students. The mental well-being of teachers significantly influences the learning environment, the emotional, as I said, and academic development of students. To cope with this deficit in mental health care for teachers, it is crucial to implement a multifaceted approach. Educational institutions can invest in mental health programs. Schools and educational authorities should invest in robust mental health programs tailored to the needs of teachers. There can be employee assistance programs, regular well-being sessions, and access to in-house or external counselors can be pivotal in helping teachers identify and manage stress effectively. Cultivating a supportive environment, creating a school culture where teachers feel valued, appreciated, and empowered is essential. This involves recognizing the challenges teachers face and allowing for mistakes and providing opportunities for professional development and leadership. Peer support structures, formal peer support structures such as mentorship programs and support group meetings can enable teachers to connect, share experiences, and provide emotional support to one another. Mental health policies and awareness, destigmatizing mental health discussions, as Ketki mentioned, within the institution's culture can go a long way in promoting open conversations about well-being. Incorporating mental health policies and awareness campaigns can further the cause. Also, acknowledging systematic challenges. Policymakers and school management should acknowledge and address the systematic challenges faced by teachers. This includes addressing issues related to workload, performance pressure, and resource limitations. The question of mental health care for teachers and how can this deficit be coped with should serve as a rallying point for a collective effort. The deficit in mental health care for teachers is not an isolated concern, but a fundamental pillar supporting the entire education system. By prioritizing teacher well-being, educators can better fulfill their roles as mentors and caregivers, leading to a positive and supportive learning environment and benefits both towards students and teachers alike. The path, I would say, towards the path towards forward involves a commitment to recognizing, addressing, and mitigating the stress and challenges faced by teachers, and ultimately nurturing a thriving and productive educational ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nana, for sharing your views. I completely agree with your point. Mental health is indeed a crucial aspect for teachers as well. And indeed, mental health play a critical role in the well-being of the students, and it is the teachers who impart mental health education. So teachers who prioritize their own mental health are better equipped to support their students mental health needs. And I'm really glad the fact that you mentioned that we should opt for a multifaceted approach. I completely agree with you. And additionally, teaching can be a very stressful and demanding profession. Like as you mentioned, the example of your relative, like in the COVID-19, I can relate to that. And teaching can be like a stressful and demanding profession, and prioritizing mental health can help prevent burnout and promote overall job satisfaction. So by taking care of their own mental health, teacher can model healthy behavior for their students and create a positive learning environment. So thank you so much, Nana, for highlighting this fact. Let me check if anyone is left. So, okay, no one is left. So I would like to give you some questions, which I would like to you to think upon, and you can cross question each other. So number one question is, what are the challenges that a government faces when it comes to imparting mental health education? Okay, Nana has raised her hand. Okay, Nana, you can go ahead.
So, it was raised from before. I didn't raise it just now.
Okay, all right,
I'm still pondering upon it.
Okay, no, take your time. All right, I'm repeating the question. What are the challenges that government face when it comes to imparting mental health education, especially in government school? Please raise your hand. Okay, Isha. Isha, you can go ahead.
So, I think one of the challenges that the government faces in general would be the integration of mental health matters into the formal curriculum and also the budgetary issues that come with it. And if we talk specifically about government schools, I think that one of the major barriers to mental health education is the lack of awareness among the kind of students and the families that they come from. Like, I mean, the low income stratum that is usually associated with government schools. So usually the that kind of uh, part of the society is not very well aware of mental health issues, and that can be a problem specific to government schools.
I completely agree with you, Isha. Ketki, would you like to add on something?
Yeah, I mean, just building up on what Isha said, that um, because mental health still is shrouded in so much stigma, becomes very difficult to gain, parental support and acknowledgement of the fact that it needs to be integrated in the curriculum. Another very pertinent challenge that I think this poses is that the government does not have the necessary resources to hire mental health professionals or mental health instructors in every one of their schools. So, because being a mental health educator or a mental health professional requires certain, mandatory licenses and education, it is very difficult to also kind of channel in that manpower into the government infrastructure to be able to dispense out that kind of education. It's not impossible, but it is certainly something that the government must divert resources into, since it is a very vital need of the hour.
True, very true, Ketki. I completely agree with you. Uh, Radhika, Ayush, would you like to add on something?
Yes, I think, like they mentioned already, apart from lack of resources, I think the social stigma that the word would spread and how their classmates or neighborhood would react would, I think, be a bigger issue. Also, in government schools, now skill development and career counseling, such seminars are happening. So mental health would be still an afterthought. And even say if there is some sort of implementation happening, how do you sustain it for a long time, especially in the lower strata? Because medication, treatment, everything is expensive. Just awareness won't do. So I think funding, resources, and then sustainability would also be an issue. Yeah, I completely agree with you, Radhika. The question of sustenance should be taken into consideration. Not only awareness, but yeah, definitely these are the issues that you highlighted should be pondered upon and should be taken into consideration. Ayush, would you like to add on something?
Yeah. So I totally agree with what Radhika said. That the budget allocation is one of the major problem points when we talk about mental health in India, or about mental health education in India, because sustenance is one of the major factor. And at the moment, as far as I have studied, 4% of the budget which is allocated for education goes for mental health education, which is very less when we talk about it. Also, um, for applying it in the government sector or in government schools, a complete or a systemic implementation of a system is needed, where we need to also destigmatize the teachers so that
Ayush, you are not audible.
yeah, I think there's some problem with my network.
No issues.
Can I add something?
Ayush, we are not still able to hear you.
Uh, Hello, am I audible now?
Yeah, better.
Yeah. So I hope a majority of what I said was conveyed. Uh, so yeah, I was talking about the budgetary allocation and how government schools need a systemic upgradation so that firstly we need to destigmatize the teachers. Uh, yeah, we need to destigmatize the teachers so that they understand what mental health is or what mental health issues are, so that they can better convey to the students who they teach. So it is yeah. So we need a systemic approach, and for that we need budget also. A better budget allocation is needed regarding. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Ayush. I completely with you. We should adopt a systematic approach, a multifaceted approach that Nana mentioned. So yeah, indeed, we should opt for that. Yeah, Nana, you were saying something? Yeah.
Okay, so apart from all these points, which I totally agree with, I would like to add that governments usually come up with a one size fits all approach. And in this mental health aspect, I would say that would not do because there are a lot of cultural and linguistic barriers around our country. So, mental health issues may be perceived differently, and so that can cause a lot of issues as there may be a dearth of counselors in local languages, which may reduce the accessibility of mental health to the people of that region. So that would be my point.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Nana. Cultural barrier do indeed create a obstruction or hindrance in imparting mental health education. I completely agree with that. And the fact that cultural barriers should be taken into consideration when it comes to imparting mental health education or in policy recommendation, if we say. So thank you for addressing this point. Anmol, would you like to add on something?
Yeah, actually, I was thinking that the primary execution of mental health education would be on the would come upon the teachers and and maybe the people in the school themselves. The government can make all the guidelines they want. They can give all the penalty they want. But the thing is, the value of mental health is not yet understood because of the favored academic competition. They just want results, and results for mental health education, you will have to be very patient about it to see, because the results will be shown in long term. So that's why, even if there has to be some things that has to be done, the government has given the guidelines and instructed the schools to implement it. They will do it just for the sake of it, because the government has said so, and not to insist upon getting positive results. So when if the people, if the teachers, if the administration itself is not focused on, on the value of mental health, how can we expect some crucial changes to come?
Yeah, Anmol, I completely agree with you. It is not only the government that is responsible. We are also equally responsible. We are the equal stakeholder when it comes to imparting mental health education. So yeah, thank you for addressing this point. Uh, would anyone like to add on something? All right. Moving on. Next question that I would like you to ponder upon is what uh, what are the policy recommendations that you all want to give when it comes to imparting mental health education? Yes, Anmol, you can go ahead.
Yeah, one thing that I experienced in my school days was that insensitivity of the teachers. Like, even if you come to go to them for some solution, something, if you confide in them, they would mainly invalidate it, or maybe they would shame you, or they will point that you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that, instead of just listening basically, and then maybe guide us. So that sensitivity is missing within the educators, and I think that should be focused during policy formulation into instill that sensitivity in the pedagogy.
Yeah, I could not agree with more with you, Anmol. Indeed, teachers do indeed play a crucial role in imparting mental health education, and for that, guidelines like we do have a lack of trained personnel, if we could say. So there is like a shortage of trained mental health professionals in many countries, especially in the country like our India. So it makes difficult for government to provide effective mental health education programs. So while making a policy, this should be taken into consideration. Like we should definitely provide training, sort of something to our teachers or professionals so that they can guide students accordingly. Yeah, Radhika, yes, you would like to add on something?
Yeah, I wanted to add that since awareness is very important to tackle social stigma, I think most government policies have been successful because of how they've promoted it on using media. So I think these days the language media uses to even talk about not social media but just digital TV channels, the language they use is quite insensitive. They almost mock mental health. So I think if TV, radios, and newspapers can be used to um, uh, just not just spread awareness, but also talk about how important it is to take intervene through government hospitals. Even such steps could have, and even that could help with accessibility as well.
I completely agree with you, Radhika. Language is indeed one of the important aspects. One of the speaker also even mentioned that about the role of words, and we completely agree that words do matter, especially like the way the media highlights word, or the way they stress upon words. It indeed play a crucial role on the mental health, not only of like especially if we talk about teenagers who are like in like the way the words are portrayed on social media. So it definitely hampers their growth, it definitely hampers their mental health. So yeah, language aspect should be taken into consideration. Ketki, yes, you would like to add on something?
Yeah, so I completely agree with the points that the speakers before me raised. Also, something that I would like to add on is something as fundamental as the health expenditure of our country. So currently, we're only spending about 2% of our GDP on healthcare. And even out of the 2%, only a tiny fraction of that gets allocated towards mental health. So, which you can imagine is a very tiny fraction when considered in the larger perspective of our GDP. So, I think the government also needs to kind of realign its policies and um, realign its own budgetary allocations and allocate more resources and finances towards improving the mental health infrastructure of the country. Yeah, that's all from my side.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Ketki. Mental health education program requires funding, and which can be a challenge for government. So they need to find ways to secure funding, their budgetary associate, to ensure that their mental health education programs are sustainable and effective. So yeah, budgetary efficiency and should be taken into consideration when it comes to policy recommendation. Yeah, would anyone would like to add on something? Anyone? Ayush?
Um, yeah, I completely agree with uh, all the speakers. Also, one point which comes to my mind regarding this is better public-private partnerships uh, for better execution of plans, or for better implementation or execution of plans set by the government. Better private and public partnerships are needed, because manpower allocation is best when it is private, as they go for efficiency, which is not a primary focus area for the governments. Their major focus area is on social welfare and not on efficiency, because they are not into profits. But private players who can play a huge role through their CSR projects focused on mental health initiatives or for mental health awareness in government schools or for the underprivileged children in general. So that's what comes to my mind when I think about this.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Ayush. Public-private partnership would, even enhance the budgetary efficient if we talk about, and they would even help in effective implementation or imparting of mental health education. So yeah, it should be taken into consideration. Thank you for addressing and highlighting this point. Isha, would you like to add on something?
Yeah, something that came to my mind was that if mental health is integrated into the curriculum, then maybe the stigma about mental health can end, even for parents and students both. So this can be done, for example, like we talk about personal hygiene as a part of EVS for kids. So maybe mental health can also be introduced in such subjects, or maybe in the form of literature in English or Hindi chapters or in other languages. We can have children relate to mental health problems or learn about them through storytelling also.
Yeah, very true, Isha. I could not agree more with you. Like when it comes to the effective implementation of mental health education and policies, so what really important is the pedagogy the pedagogy and the approach that teachers use. So the learning tools and the materials methodology that are imparting. So yeah, it should be taken into consideration. The fact that usually I think in 11th and 12th only the psychology subject is being introduced. We have not like any mental health subject if we talk about, like as you mentioned, EVS, but it's not in much detail if we talk about. So yeah, the different approach towards imparting mental health education and the different pedagogy should be according to that and according to the ages if we talk about. So like the pedagogical approach for a 3-year child would be different comparative to a 15-year-old child. So yeah, it should be taken into consideration when it comes to effective implementation of mental health education. Thank you, Isha, for highlighting this fact. All right, so the various keynotes that we take from this policy Manthan discussion, if we talk about that, indeed, mental health is a crucial aspect of personal overall well-being. It is basically the state of emotional, psychological, and social well being in which an individual can cope with the normal stresses of life, work productively, and contribute to their community. And the role of mental health in education cannot be overstated. So, mental health problems can impact academic performance, social relationship, and overall quality of life. And the impact of mental health performance on academic performance is significant. Students with mental health issue often struggle to concentrate. They have difficult they face difficulty in completing their assignments and they miss their classes, so it leads to increased absenteeism or leads to their poor grades and even dropping out of schools. So in addition to that, mental health problems can affect social relationships and make it difficult for students to form connections with their peer and teachers. So it is essential for school to prioritize mental health and provide them various resources to support students. School can offer counseling service, mental health screening, education, and education on stress management, coping skills, and uh, apart from that, teachers can also play a very important role in promoting mental health by creating a supportive classroom environment and being aware of the signs of distress in their students. In addition to that, school-based resources, parents and caregivers can also play a critical role in supporting their children's mental health, encouraging open communication, providing emotional support, and seeking professional help when needed can make a significant difference in child's mental well-being. So, to briefly paraphrase, I would like to say that mental health is indeed one of the critical component of students' overall well-being and academic success. It is essential for school to prioritize mental health and provide resources to support students. By working together, school, parents, and caregivers can create a supportive environment that promotes mental health and well-being for all students. So, thank you for joining this wonderful policy Manthan discussion, and thank you for sharing your insightful perspective. Uh, yeah, you all can leave the meeting. Thank you so much. It was great listening to your all perspective.